We have strategic business items to consider today, particularly in relation to the local government finance settlement and their important work on tackling poverty in the region. I look forward to a constructive debate. Copies of the addendum to the exempt item 13 on the agenda, DG1, will be distributed to members at the appropriate point of the meeting, and I would ask members at that time to agree to take a short recess to give us time to read before the debate. Last week, our Council won the National Digital Public Service Award at the Scottish Public Service Awards held at the Scottish Parliament. Our Persons at Risk database system utilises social work and NHS data to provide real-time access via a map system to pinpoint the location of vulnerable people during emergencies, saving valuable time in identifying priorities and deploying resources to where they are most needed. Our work with the Persons at Risk has been recognised as best in class. The judges said that the Persons at Risk database is a groundbreaking and award-winning project which seeks to protect and prioritise the most vulnerable in the Dumfries and Galloway region during times of disruption. On behalf of members, I would like to extend congratulations to the team from across services who were involved in the development and introduction of the system. Well done. I would also wish to take this opportunity to express our thanks, I am sure on behalf of all members, to all Council staff who worked tirelessly over the weekend during the recent flooding that took place in a number of communities. From social work staff protecting the most vulnerable to DG First handing out sandbags in communities to keep their property safe, the role Council staff was ignored in the print media, but this was a strong response to this major emergency by our staff. I was present in the emergency centre on Saturday and was impressed with the coordination and efficiency of the joint agency efforts. We were able to identify potential incidents early and deploy resources to ensure that local people and communities received the support, resources, advice, information and reassurance that they needed. The Council's community resilience arrangements meant that local communities in many areas were prepared and we were able to establish two-way communication, allowing us to get the message out quickly to enable those communities to react swiftly and effectively. The support from the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, Police Scotland, Scottish Ambulance, NHS and SEPA meant that resources could be deployed to where they were needed most. Having all our partners working together on this emergency response allowed us to respond in a coordinated and effective manner. I would also like to take this opportunity to provide members with an update on the progress we are making in relation to the resettlement of Syrian refugees in our region. The interagency project team met earlier this week and has agreed robust and coordinated arrangements that bring together the wealth of talent and support for this work that has been offered across the 15 partners and from local people across the region, and also ensures that security and community safety issues are taken into account. In addition, the team is liaising with national agencies, other parts of Scotland and Cumbria to ensure that we tap into the expertise and materials that are already available. We are therefore working on the basis that we will be in a good position to resettle 4 Syrian families here by March 2016 as planned. I'd like to highlight that the relocation to places in Dumfries and Galloway will be as local residents. Any direct costs covered won't be covered by the Home Office, so there is no financial detriment to our council or to local people. A report will come to the Policy Resources Committee in February 2016, giving details of the arrangements. The overwhelming response from people across Scotland recognises that this resettlement scheme is making a positive contribution to the delivery of our communities and for rural areas such as ours. There is an international evidence that there is mutual benefit in their involvement in employment, environmental and creative activities. As councillors, we have a duty to work with our communities and organisations in the coming months to address any concerns they may have, responsibly, openly and honestly. This is, in the first instance, a humanitarian response to helping some of the most vulnerable people in the world. I believe that compassion is a hallmark of this council and that we are therefore well placed to offer refugee families a safe haven and a bright future. I hope that belief is endorsed by my fellow councillors. Right, we can move on to the business. Rona, SEDERUNT apologies, please.
Thank you, Leader. We have apologies from Councillors Collins, Dempster, Geddes, Gilroy, Nicol, Smith and Tate. And as we start the meeting, Councillors Mail and,
Councillor Hislop.
Councillor Hislop, apologies from him, and Councillor Wiper is also not present.
Apologies for Councillor Wiper.
Thank you.
Thank you. I should say that Councillor Smith sent his apologies in. His wife had a wee baby at 4 o'clock this morning, a wee baby girl. So. I don't know where it is in old money, but in new money it's 3.621. Okay, declarations of interest, members? No? Item 3, which is the minute of meeting of 29th of September. Happy to move.
Happy a second.
Okay, if we move on to item 4, which is the further development finance strategy updating the budget model. Yesterday, I attended a special meeting of COSLA leaders where we were eventually informed of the Scottish Government settlement for local government 2016-17. As members will be aware, we have normally had details of the settlement by September, but this year it was delayed until December, effectively giving councils less than 2 months to make adjustments to existing planned budgets. The settlement itself resulted in an overall 3.5% cut in local government budgets, which COSLA predict will result in a 15,000 job losses across councils and a loss of £350 million. We should be in no doubt that responsibility for what can only be described as a vindictive attack on local councils rests firmly with the Scottish Government, whose contempt towards local government knows no limit. Let me be clear, I have no time for the austerity policies of the current UK Government, whose cuts are too deep and too fast. However, although the budget allocation from the UK Government to the Scottish Government did not rise in real terms, it was an increase in cash terms of several £100 million. In contrast, the settlement to councils from the Scottish Government was not only a cut in real terms, but also in cash terms. In short, it was the single biggest attack on local government for a generation. This was austerity plus from the Scottish Government, and this time they cannot lay the blame at the door of the UK Government. Although, as is always the case with budgets, officers will need to study the fine detail, our initial estimates suggest that the cut to our own council will be 4.5%. That is higher than the Scottish average. That is likely to require us to find savings of £21.193 million next year alone, £9 million more than our planned budget savings of £12 million. A cut way beyond even our most pessimistic estimates a year ago. This could rise to 5.1%, meaning it could be £22.793 million. With the restriction on what we can do in education and social care services, this whole reduction will have to be found from the other 50% of our budget, £170 million. As members know, we have already had to make £40 million worth of savings over the past 5 years, including the current financial year. So our options are running out. We will continue to drive forward our efficiency strategy to make some savings. But the debate over the next 2 months won't be about how we trim services. It will be about what services we simply have to stop providing. There is no doubt that difficult decisions lie ahead for our council. However, I know that local people understand that savage cuts our council faces are not of our making, and that we won't be able to provide some of the council's existing services. But when we do make those decisions in February, I hope that all members will remain focused on our key priorities of building our local economy, protecting the most vulnerable, and providing the best start in life for our children. I have provided some estimated figures, and Paul has obviously already provided us through the report before you the impact of various estimates. Policy resources in January, the exact detail of what this settlement means for us will be laid out in detail. Officers will also send all groups details of some initial work that has been done on possible savings options, but ultimately it will be for groups to determine where they wish to make savings when preparing their own budget amendments for February. Paul is here today to deal with any questions arising from the report. I will now open up the meeting to members. Andy?
Thanks, Leader. Just for me to be clear, the delay in the budget statement yesterday was caused because the autumn statement was delayed at Westminster. That is a fact, right?
So yeah, but I think the details of the UK review was known by the Scottish Government on the 25th of November. But whatever happened after that, is not. We're dealing with the aftermath of all this anyway. But sorry, Jean.
Well, Leader, I will say that I think we've got to have a sensible debate about all of this. And I would also say to you that I don't think actually talking about vindictive and contempt actually really helps. However, I do want to say that that I know that you and COSLA are all really vexed at the whole issue of the council tax freeze, which has tied our hands, and the issue about our inability to make our own decisions locally about the teachers. People should be looking at the ratio of pupils to teachers, not at the overall numbers. Could I ask you 2 questions, please, Leader? First of all, are we going to be sanctioned about the teacher issue, which I understand we have not technically met our obligations, but that was due to vacancies being held. And as everybody knows, it's extremely difficult to recruit down to Dumfries and Galloway. Seems to be a lack of understanding about our whole position here. And the second issue, I wonder if somebody could help me about the money that is going to come to local authorities, I understand, with respect to health and social care. But maybe I picked that up wrongly from the report. Is there an implication there for us? Thank you.
The £250 million is going directly for the Integrated Joint Board, and we won't have anything on that. The education, I'll let Colin come in and give some of the reasons why, but there will be sanctions of about £300,000, I think it is, Paul, on that. Even although we are the second lowest ratio, pupil-teacher ratio in Scotland, people that are above that ratio are actually getting rewarded. But, that's that's the way it has been worked out. So we've no option within that. We have tried our very hardest. I think there's about 37 different things we've been trying to actually, mitigate teacher numbers. And we could have, even although if we wanted, we could have took on an extra 15, but the teachers that aren't available to buffer on that, but should have cost us more money as well. But I'll let Colin come in and speak to you about that.
Thanks, Leader. Probably not much more to add than what's already been said. I certainly didn't want to be in the position where we didn't meet both targets. I'm absolutely confident that the team in education have done absolutely everything they can to meet both targets. We did meet the pupil-teacher ratio target, which is the second best in mainland Scotland. We attempted to over-recruit through asking for a significant number of trainees, but we received 19 trainees fewer than we asked for. And thereafter, I hope you remember that we reversed all of the budget savings that had been initially planned. We applied exactly the same formula, staffing formula, to our schools at primary and secondary as we did last year, and we attempted to recruit to the full measure. We've had difficulty in recruitment, as is well known. I think there's a real shortage of supply cover out there. I've been in some schools which have 2 or 3 times advertised for post and been unsuccessful. I would say the only possible thing that could have been done further might have been to ask secondary head teachers to bring in teachers which were not the subjects that they needed, even if they were available. So it's very difficult to see what more we can do or could have done to try to meet both targets, but that's the position we're in. As far as I haven't seen any details around any sanction, but if the sanction is around £300,000, I think what I can reassure members about is the very factors that have not allowed us to make the targets means that we're likely to have an underspend in supply costs and in some vacancy management, and we would therefore anticipate being able to accommodate the cost of the fine within the education budget. But nonetheless, we will continue next year to do everything we possibly can to recruit fully and meet the targets set. And if it's helpful to members, I'll send round a briefing about all of the things we've tried to do in terms of recruitment.
Well, Leader, I mean, dare I say it, that just says it all, doesn't it? We're being sanctioned for being at the margins, and it indicates to me a total lack of understanding in the Central Belt of the problems that peripheral areas, rural areas deal with. I can say no more.
Okay, Ian?
Thanks, Leader. I think Jane's picked up on a couple of things certainly I was going to touch on, but the teacher numbers. Did we get an actual financial figure there? Did we get an actual financial figure there in regards to the sanctions we have? I would imagine a sanction. Have we had a financial penalty in regards to that? That was one question I missed that if we had that explained. In regards to the flooding, there has been some money promised through the Bellwin formula, I think. Have we got any information in regards to that potentially? How many jobs does this actually mean across the council? I mean, there's rumours that we might have to sack over 300 people here, so we'd have to get some kind of indication in regards to that. We have to go towards the compulsory redundancy stage. The council tax freeze, we agree. I think the council tax freeze, we should. Scottish Government could have took a position similar to the UK Government, especially when it comes to the social care side. They could have done that, or even, but it's been said many times, I think, over the last 12 to 14 hours about we've got an election in May, and that's been kind of put first. And as far as how do we go forward in lobbying is make our strongest argument. Do we go up and stand outside of Holyrood as a council? Do we go as strong as that? Do we actually demonstrate to that level? What do we actually do? We have been hammered, let's face it. It's a political decision, so we have to accept that to a degree, but we have to put up the strongest case we have on behalf of the people in Dumfries and Galloway in regards to the reduction in service that they'll receive through these cuts.
On your last point, COSLA did put a motion forward yesterday not agreeing with what was happening, what was proposed by the Scottish Government, and that was passed. There will be further negotiations through COSLA on the proposals that came forward, but the reality is that's what was put forward, and I can't see much light coming from that. The negotiations, we are not going to sack anybody. we don't sack people for no reason. The groups won't have to look at how, as I said before, they won't get templates about potential savings and what that actually means. Groups can ask the officers for advice and make their own mind up about how they want to, if they want to put in amendments to the budget in the future. I think I gave a figure about £300,000 in sanctions, but I'll ask Paul for the correct figure if that's...
Yeah, the information we received yesterday after the announcement confirmed that the reduction that we will see in the current financial year in relation to teachers' numbers issue is £303,000. As I said, that is at a current year sanction. There's nothing in the information that suggests there's any impact on funding from the upcoming financial year onwards. In terms of the questioning on the flood funding, just had informal indications of the level of allocation to Dumfries and Galloway at this stage, but we think it's around about £700,000. I wasn't aware it was coming through the Bellwyn scheme. To be honest, I would hope that's not the case, because that makes it more complex to access. But my understanding is 700,000 there potentially available.
It was my understanding, Paul, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's not coming through the Bellman scheme. It's, you know, because we wouldn't qualify for the Bellman scheme. Sorry, is that on the same point? Oh, no. Does that answer everything, Ian?
It does, but maybe as we go, as we round up the numbers, we've not got a particular number when it comes to the amount of jobs and employees that we'll have to lose over this, but how we take this forward in the best way. I know you've touched on COSLA, but I think as a council, can we do a better way to lobby Scottish Government, even if it means standing it outside of Holyrood? That might be a potential.
Okay, Dick.
Thanks, Chair. I think Dumfries and Galloway faces its greatest challenge of these times. Savings of about £20 million to meet. This will lead to reduction in core services, and we will lose hundreds of jobs in our region. And the effects of these far-reaching cuts could be mitigated by allowing the council to make a reasonable increase in the council tax. I think there are double standards at work in the process. Scottish Government want Westminster to trust them to run the country's finances, and they want the power to set levels of taxation in a reasonable manner. I think it's completely undemocratic to refuse to trust councils to act reasonably and set their own levels of council tax. And I think we're even in a worse position than England, where councils are allowed to raise tax at local level by 2%. The Scottish Government talk an anti-austerity agenda, but now they're actually promoting greater austerity in Dumfries and Galloway and across all the regions of Scotland. Greater austerity than across the border. At the end of the process, they will be able to say at election time, look how good we did, we kept the council tax funds for X number of years. But I think that's at the expense of local taxpayers and local people who depend on the services which the council provide. And I can understand Scottish Government reluctance to increase income tax because of the effects on low paid. But there is a safety net in increasing the council tax. With the low paid, those in benefits and in pension credits are entitled to relief. I think as a council we should be saying to the government, yes, we should be allowed to act reasonably and put up the council tax to mitigate the effects of the settlement. Thank you.
Graham.
Yeah, no.
Ian.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just leave aside the political issues for the moment? If I can refer the members to page 26, Paul has listed a number of budget pressures, one of which is energy. Successive administrations in this council have advocated green energy projects as a way of mitigating large portions of our budget. And it was confirmed on advice that there's a potential capital spend to save. Some of those progressed earlier on, namely there was about 20 projects of photovoltaics, for example, which savings are included in the current savings that are listed in this paper. There was even a paper which appeared, I believe it was Plan and Environment, over 2 years ago, with specifications for a couple of turbines which were suggested might save a considerable amount of the budget for street lighting in this region. There were a number of other projects looked at, the continuation of photovoltaics, hydro energy, and so forth and so on. What has disappointed me is the fact that despite having the successive administrations and the continual advocacy of this group, discussions with the offices through budget and other forums, there's little been done. And what's been quite clear to me is that we could have had the potential to have reduced the amount we need to save today if some of these projects had been progressed before. And I'm extremely disappointed I have to bring this up, because I have continuously, and I know there was potential there. It was certainly looked at very enthusiastically early on in this council. So I express my disappointment, but I still think there's an opportunity here that if projects are looked at for energy mitigation, we could still do something with the remaining couple of years and going forward into the council beyond.
You want to comment on that?
Just to say, obviously we're looking for every savings opportunity at the moment, and we're including energy efficiency schemes within that, and if we're able to bring forward further proposals to members in January, we'll certainly make those options available.
Okay, Gail first.
Thank you, Leader. Picking up on the points that Councillor Maitland's made, I think it's bitterly disappointing that we've ended up in a situation where, again, the second time in a year, we're being penalised by the Scottish Government for actually doing a fairly good job with our teaching. We've started off from a higher benchmark. We've been refused the probationer places that we requested. No rural recruitment individual area has been taken into consideration. £300 million out of our budget. I appreciate that Colin said that that money's sitting there because we haven't been able to recruit, but we could use it elsewhere, or we could use it for budget savings. And I just think we need to send a very strong message to the Scottish Government that we're doing things right here and we're constantly being penalised.
I'd just like to give you reassurance that message has been relayed to no less than John Swinney himself, but unfortunately he did say they looked at the overall Scotland-wide, but says, this is affecting Dumfries and Galloway, and he says he's looking at the Scotland-wide. Willie?
Yeah, Chair, and I don't think there is very little that can be added to your budget statement, your opening statement, and we would like to endorse every word that you made in terms of yesterday's settlement announcement. I think yesterday was a very sad day for local government and the vicious attacks that have been made on us, and really I fail to see how we can sustain the amount of cuts that are going to be required in this year. It's almost like rolling together 3 years on the figures that you've quoted of 4.5 and a possible 5.1% of cuts. And as you rightly say, this could be doing away with services that the people so much need out there. Ian has referred to what can we do in terms of lobbying. I think we should take the lead or follow the lead from Jim McCabe and South Lanark and introduce or try and look at, look at our lobbying strategy and how we can take this to the Scottish Government and say that these cannot be sustained. However much, it is, and I think Jackie Bailey touched on it yesterday, in terms of that we're getting more austerity, and this time from the SNP Scottish Government. This has got to stop, and we've got to take this, if need be, to the Westminster Parliament as well. So, as I say, there's very little. We would totally endorse your statement. But I would like to ask Colin a question on education. Points have been made, and indeed Aberdeen or the Highlands have taken full advantage. We did last year on the Grow Your Own initiative, and I would hope that we get a confirmation that we will continue this on next year. I know that as a Wigton Area Committee, we are due to meet with Gillian Brydon on the Grow Your Own, but if we could hear maybe that there is confirmation that we will continue to grow our own, because there are people out there, there are graduates who are ready to come forward and are willing to actually enter into, so that we can overcome the problem of recruitment by using what we've got there. Perhaps if Colin could reaffirm that.
Colin?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Happy to offer a level of confirmation there. The current scheme that we have has ensured that we have 10 local people training at the moment, who would look to be almost certain to continue, therefore, to work in Dumfries and Galloway. Those were additional places that were given to Dumfries and Galloway candidates for the student teaching programme. What we've done for next year is we have asked the government if they would again increase the number of places available across Scottish colleges to ensure that we could actually have 30 additional places for Dumfries and Galloway candidates to attend. We're awaiting the final decision there in terms of increasing the number of places available in college. The only question mark ahead on that agenda is whether we wish to invest in some cost for backfill if it's currently staff who work at the council, and whether that makes it more attractive, or whether we wish to invest in a small honorarium, or whether in fact we simply settle for having managed to get the additional places available. And that's a further discussion around the spend to save question. But we've certainly asked for the additional places for next year.
Will you want back in?
Yeah, please, Chair. And Colin has put something to us there. And it's maybe the wrong day to come and ask, you know, given the announcement you've just made. But I hope we would get a total endorsement in principle that if need be, we will backfill, given that it is the way to overcome the recruitment, at least in part, and that this council would agree in principle, still with further discussion to take place.
I think you've got a guarantee that we won't be looking at everything, because it's going to take more than one aspect. I think, as Colin said before, we've been looking at 37 different ways of doing it. Andy?
Thanks, Leader. Just a couple of things. I actually accept John Swinney got the information on the 25th of November. I would suggest 3 weeks to actually turn around and give a Scottish budget. If he'd done it any sooner, it would have been in decent haste. And he took a reasonable amount of time, got it as quickly as he could. But that's a comment. Two things I'd just like to comment on. I believe this council voted unanimously, I might be wrong in that, but to accept the teacher money to maintain the teacher numbers as they were. And it wasn't for the general education budget. So it wouldn't be a sanctions as such, it would be us having to return money which you got for a specific purpose. The second thing is that it's a direct question to you, I think, Ronnie. Is it the Labour policy then that we're going to keep the council tax after 2016-17 because and not heed the cross-party tax commission advice, and are they not going to include it in their party manifesto for 2016 and for 2017 for local government elections? Because they were right at the centre of that whole thing, that whole agreement, where everyone agrees it's not right. But are we honestly saying we would put it in for 1 year and then in 2017-18 change to a new system? And the incumbent cost of changing it for 1 year, is that really what we're saying is our council stance?
Council stance. Council makes a decision on how they want to see forward. It's not me as an individual that makes any decision, and I won't, you know, I won't give an answer for the council on that. You keep going back, Andy. The reality is, you know, this council is facing tremendous cuts, unknown to any council previously. And this is down to the Scottish Government. You can try and hide everything you want, but it's a decision that the Scottish Government has made and the policies that they are putting forward. It's the policies of the Scottish Government that is actually making these cuts. No one else. So you can try and dress it up however much you want, and you can try and say they didn't have an awful lot of time. The Scottish Government knew on the 25th of November the outcome of the UK Government spending review. They have time to plan. They give us no time at all. They've given us less time than ever to try and make ends meet with the budget resources that are being cut by them. But anyway, Ted, do you want? No? Okay, John?
Thank you, Leader. I think we all accept in this chamber this morning the shocking statement that we got yesterday and how that is actually going to affect everybody that we represent, because we are going to have to make savage cuts to actually move forward with this in one way or another, because there is nothing else that we can do. So I wholeheartedly agree with some of what you've said this morning. I would like to ask Paul a question though, please. I believe that in the settlement, obviously 32 councils have all got to take cuts in that settlement that was announced yesterday. But my understanding is that the Dumfries and Galloway cut is severer than some of the other councils. And I just want to understand that, because I understand from the list that was announced that Dumfries and Galloway Council's budget is cut worse than any other budget in Scotland, or if it's not worse than any other councils in Scotland, it is very close to be one of the worst. And I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah, I'll let Paul come in, but, you know, I think I've stated before, I don't know, but the Scottish Government has set a floor of a number that you can't go above. So it doesn't matter if, you know, each individual council has their own, you know, percentage-wise, and ours is 4.5%. I'll let Paul come in and answer the question.
I think, sorry, Chair, but I think it's important that people in the chamber realise exactly how much money we're talking about in the total cut in that budget compared to some of the other councils, because I think we are one of the highest.
Yes, the analysis is correct. The average funding reduction across Scotland reflected in the circular that came out is 3.9%. Dumfries and Galloway is one of the 14 councils who will receive the maximum cut of 4.5%. If we try and put that into context in terms of a cash reduction, if you look at page 16 of your papers today, a 4.5% cash reduction equates to £13.2 million, which is somewhere, obviously, is between that 4 and 5% analysis at paragraph 5.2. 13.2 million cut in funding, which would lead to about a 21.2 million savings requirement next year. One of the things I should also comment on is that we're still waiting for some further information to support the settlement. And our initial analysis of the figures showed that the level of cash reduction is a wee bit higher than that. It's actually up about £14.7 million, which is closer to a 5% reduction. So that's something we're looking for further information from the Scottish Government on at the minute. Like other authorities, we're all basically waiting for further support and detail to come through to be able to fully analyse the settlement. Obviously, I'll give members further information on that once we receive it.
Thank you for that, Paul. Can you tell me then why we're one of, why are there 14 councils singled out for a higher cut than others?
Basically, the way the distribution of funding between councils works is it's based on a needs-based formula that can relate to a number of things like pupil numbers, number of elderly people, road length, things like that. And that results in a real spread of funding reductions across Scotland. Before the application of the floor that the leader referred to, there were some councils actually would have lost about 15% of their funding. We were actually not one of the ones that were going down by 4.5%, but because we contribute towards the floor, support those other councils below the 4.5%, that's what's made our overall reduction come to that 4.5% level.
Okay, Andrew.
Thank you, Leader. I was just wondering, had you been able to get hold of the information earlier, as you suggest, how this report would have been constructed in any different way, because I think that Paul Garrett has actually made a very good stab at what was, I think most people were predicting. What I would say is that unfortunately one of the downsides to working with the block grant system that we have and that you were keen to maintain, and you did make mention to the fact that you felt that a council tax rise would be an appropriate way of addressing many of the deficiencies. Could you give the public an indication of what that would be?
I made no such comment. Somebody else did.
Then,
Sorry, no.
Sorry, Chair. Then,
No, I'm sorry. I'll bring you back in. Is there an additional question?
I was going to apologise for that if that was the case. And what I would like to do is to reword it in that there seems to be an appetite for an increase in council tax. Could we get an indication of what that would be?
I don't think there's an appetite to increase the council tax at all, and you can try and play with words whatever you want. What we do want is we want proper funding. We don't want cuts in councils. We don't want that. We don't want them to come back and say we've got to make £20 million worth of savings this year. So that's what we want as a council. Don't be so silly, Andrew. Come on, don't be silly. Stop trying to put words in people's mouths. Excuse me, can you keep quiet, please? Thank you. Craig?
Thank you, Leader. I was just wondering if Paul could comment on how points 8.2 and 8.3 on page 18 of the papers fits in with the budget savings going forward. Because if I'm reading this correctly, there's a potential there for an extra £6 million of budget pressure on top of the announced savings, and that's all coming forward without extra finance for these directives that have been put before us.
Oh.
Just to clarify, there's two issues referred to at paragraphs 8.2 and 8.3. The first relates to an increase in national insurance contribution rates next year, which is expected to cost us £3 million. That is in the budget. It's reflected in the budget pressures appendix, so that in itself won't further increase the savings beyond what we're talking about this morning. The second issue relates to a potential additional cost of up to £3 million in relation to the living wage in the social care sector. The remainder of that section reflects on some funding that is available within the budget to help address that, certainly not the £3 million in full. So if there is additional amounts required from the council beyond the amounts reflected at paragraphs 8.5 and 8.7 in the report, that would add to the savings. But there's a lot of further work to be done on both the level of additional cost there and actually under other funding sources as well.
How much did we actually get for that? For that £3 million?
The Scottish Government allocation is 170,000.
Finlay?
Thanks, Chair. Yesterday, John Swinney suggested this was the Scottish alternative to austerity. I think that was the most crazy statement ever. This is a settlement which all it does is centralise more power, centralise more decision-making, and takes it away from local people. I think Dumfries and Galloway Council, like myself, believe in decisions being taken as close to the people as possible. And yesterday, that was taken away from us. I think it's an attack on democracy, not just attacking our budgets. We've got a fantastic council here that have worked very hard over the last few years. We've got a CCS department that's moving in the right direction, where some of the savings are going to be made by putting more emphasis on communities taking responsibilities for things they want done. I think this seriously dents the possibility of some of our changes going ahead by making some of the options very difficult. The centralisation that we're seeing across the country is failing, and that can be seen by the centralisation of the police service that was supposed to return billions of pounds worth of savings. And yesterday it was announced as if it was some good news that we're actually pumping more money into the police service because it's actually failing.
Jeff?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, having listened to the debate, I think it's actually shameful that Andy Ferguson and his colleagues on the SNP side are more interested in justifying the timing of this announcement rather than actually criticising the size of the cuts which are coming to our region. And make no mistake about it, people who are going to be worst hit in this region and across Scotland as a whole are the poorest. So, you know, all this anti-austerity rhetoric that the SNP government have been coming up with is just actually exposed for the guff it really is. It's obvious that the SNP government doesn't respect the work that local authorities do in the communities, and it's much more determined to pursue its centralising agenda, as Finlay says, with regards to the police force, etc., but also with regard to the council tax freeze, which has been imposed on us, and the rigidity with regard to the teacher numbers. And it's worrying from the education point of view that the Finance Minister again announced an absolute freeze on teacher numbers for next year, despite the problems he knows we and other local authorities are facing with recruitment down here. So once again, we're going to be penalised, and he knows we're going to be penalised. He doesn't care, basically. And I think it was quite interesting, Paul's justification, or Paul's explanation, rather, of why we've been so badly hit in terms of the 4.5% cut rather than the 3.5%. We have the lowest average wage in the country. We've got an ageing population. Whichever formula seems to be applied to Dumfries and Galloway, we always seem to lose out under the Scottish Government, unfortunately.
Yen?
Thank you, Leader. I want to ask, can the SNP commit themselves for the life of the next 5 years of the Scottish Parliament that they will continue council tax freeze, free prescriptions, and free tuition fees? Or is it just to get the votes in May 2016, then raise the council tax and other fees after should they be in power again?
I'll take that as a comment, Yen. Yep. Yen?
First of all, that presupposes an SNP win next year. The second thing is I hear criticism of the single police force by political parties who actually supported it.
We supported a single police force, yes, but it was not the way it's being run. Tom?
Yeah, I think one thing we're forgetting here, we can talk about local government and the way it has suffered under the SNP in the last few years. I mean, let us not forget we've lost over 1,000 jobs locally because of that, and that's just local government employees. It's a knock-on effect in the rest of society. We cut our budget by 22 million. It's not only the services here that suffer, and a lot of the services we provide are going to the poorest in society. So council tax freeze in many ways has benefited the rich. The cuts we're making are harming the poor. And let's not forget that this Scottish Government is very, very anti-local government. But what's more worrying is we purchase a lot of services locally, and this is having a knock-on effect to local businesses. They're not getting as much work, they're not employing as many people. So as soon as the Scottish Government wakes up and stops attacking local government, the better. John Swinney might have thought he was having some alternative to austerity. He certainly was. It was austerity max. He's actually worse than Osborne.
Okay, I'll treat that comment as well. Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Just a couple of questions. One's for Paul. The funding distribution, which has ended up with us getting a 4.5% cut instead of the 3.9%, as Paul says. Am I right in saying that is agreed between the Scottish Government and COSLA? As regards the thousands of job losses, I don't know where the figures are coming from, because if you look at the figures that are reported to P&R, between the years 2011, which was the first year we actually gave figures, in 2015, there has been 296 positions less, and only 262 positions, full-time positions, less than what the council are actually saying. So I don't know where the thousands of jobs are coming from. As regard the comment by Councillor Brodie, we can all have our views on the council tax, but unfortunately for him, at least this government actually does what it promises during an election and actually keeps a promise, not like his.
A lot of comments now. Paul?
The floor is an accepted part of the settlement, but it is actually set and determined by Mr Swinney he actually agrees the operation of the floor and also the level at which the floor is set.
Yeah, thanks. I realise that the floor has been set, but the actual funding distribution, before you put the floor in, is agreed between Scottish Government and COSLA.
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Okay, I'm going to move on. I've got the recommendations. We're being asked to note the revisions which we've done in 2.2. A further report will be presented in January, into the policy resources as well. Can we note that?
Yeah, can we address, and I can understand the SNP's heads being down, there was power there that they could have affected, but they didn't. But can we look at the possibility of our lobbying strategy so that we can address what we do as an authority and maybe come up with something that we can consider at PNR as a response to this?
We'll have a look and see what more can be done while in the point. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Leader. It's just again in respect of the teacher numbers. Is there nothing we can do now? Is there an appeal? I mean, we seem to have a really strong case, so they're just going to bomb blast us anyway.
No, no, they've set it. It's been set. You must meet the two, and that's it.
So even when you have a really strong case against something,
even when we're the second best in the team.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. We'll take that up in a press release.
Okay, moving on to item 5. Sorry, Jeff.
Thanks, Leader. I think all of us are going to have to go out into our communities and justify the size of these cuts, and there's been a lot of figures bandied backwards and forwards. As updates to these, would it be possible to have a briefing on the size of the cuts, etc., and put this all into context when we need to go out to community councils and explain the size of the cuts which we're having imposed on us, which we'll then have to pass on to our community?
Yes, I'll work with Paul today and we'll get something for members by close of play tonight that sets our best estimates with also some of the caveats, because obviously we still have to work through some of the spreadsheets, but we'll have headline numbers available for all members by close of play tonight.
Moving on to item 5, Treasury Management 2015-16. The Council is required to receive a Treasury Management mid-year review, setting out the Council's transactions and debt performance for the period October 2015. Andrew Ewart is here present to answer any questions. I think this is, those people at the seminar earlier on found that very useful, and even although I had to leave you a bit early, I found time usefully spent. Members? Alistair?
Thank you. I refer to paragraph 3.63 and, well, more specifically 3.64. The approved limits within the annual investment strategy were not breached during the first 7 months of 2015-16. Clearly, we need flexibility in terms of liquidity and to access funds. Is there a particular figure that we work to in respect of the liquidity?
There are no specific figures for the amount of investment we have. We do have an investment strategy which limits the investments we can hold with any individual bank or investment body, and that's what that refers to. The two bodies there, Santander and the Royal Bank of Scotland, we have a £5 and £10 million limit with each of those, which weren't breached during the year. The only other body we have money with is our own bank, the Bank of Scotland, which is a £20 million limit, and again that wasn't breached. We do have a range of counterparties available to us, but given the amount of the funds that we have available at present, we're not utilising them at present.
Ian?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to continue to be appreciative of the ability of our finance department to manage the in its expertise in treasury management. I have to say, as far as the seminar is concerned, well, I found the first bit useful, and I was one of the ones that advocated having something like this. I was expecting something much more forensic, in order that, because I'm aware of the fact that every time a treasury management report comes up, there's a great deal of detail in there which is not readily understood. And I was expecting something which is an awful lot more forensic, perhaps even boring, but to the point of understanding why we lend where we do, and when we alter our strategy. So as far as the second part is concerned, despite my feedback form, I was actually extremely disappointed.
Archie.
Thanks very much. I also attended the seminar and I thought it was actually pretty good, because obviously the more information we as local councillors can get, as you know, for the treasury management, the better it actually is. The situation was made very clear to me about how we manage our budgets, and I really enjoyed the way that the two speakers actually put it across to us in my particular terms, the lowest possible common denominator for treasury management. So looking at the report, it looks really good, and happy to accept the recommendations here.
Okay, can we note the report? Okay. Go on to item 6, which is implement a council's anti-poverty strategy. Just say this council is fully committed to tackling poverty and giving practical support and assistance to the most vulnerable people across the region. Our strategy focuses on practical steps to ensure our resources are targeted at those most in need, helping people out of poverty, improving their quality of life. I'm pleased with the significant progress and welcome the wide range of activity and engagement we have achieved in this first 6 months, both at local and national level. Our profile as a living wage employer, working with other employers in the region to encourage them to pay the living wage, is vitally important in tackling in-work poverty. I am particularly encouraged by the response from local employers to my offer of support for living wage accreditation. I also welcome the suggestions in the report to support the delivery of our strategy, in particular the support to ensure all young people at school are able to participate and achieve in their chosen subjects by removing the barriers to certain subjects. Liz is here to answer any questions, members. Ian?
Thanks, Leader. I mean, I quite enjoyed this report, actually. It was quite a good, in the recommendation 2.1, we're asked to note, and you start to understand as you read through the bulk of work that's actually going on there, and it all looks quite positive, and we're asked to recognise that. But in regards to 2.2, I just wonder, I mean, they look really good as well. The initiatives under 2.2, this mic's maybe not close enough to my mouth, but under 2.2, it refers to a particular section within the report and the appendix as well, and it outlines the kind of work and initiatives that are going on there. It's really, really good to me. I just wonder any further information in regards to the success rate and how they're being applied.
Liz?
The success rate in relation to the overall action plan?
Well, I suppose, I mean, what it looks like, I mean, we've got figures there in regards to the uptake, how it's going on, how it's been applied. I mean, I'm looking at particularly, it's running about technical, home economics, that type of thing is what we're looking at. I just think that's very basic skills that are really required for young people. I just would like to understand better how that's been the kind of uptake, and how it can kind of, in real terms, how it's benefiting these people for the sake of their future.
Like the detail that's in the appendix for the uptake of home economics and hospitality and technical subjects is the current position. And I think what the appendix has tried to convey is that there is an anecdotal suspicion at the moment that not all pupils are taking up these subjects because there is a cost attached to them. And so while there aren't figures about how many pupils will take it up if there is no cost, but I think we're expecting there to be a higher uptake at the moment. Because, as I say, it's anecdotal. We don't have factual evidence about that. But you'll see in the appendix that there are a number of reasons why this is a particularly important one. It does tie into employment opportunities and life skills in terms of cooking. So it does tick a number of aspects of the anti-poverty strategy in one particular initiative.
Thanks, Leader. That's well explained. I missed that. So it's about making it more accessible more than anything because of the financial restrictions that are placed on some people. No, thanks for that.
Well,
Yeah, Chair, given the previous item we discussed and indeed the attack on the poor by the settlement announcement, I think we're going to have to sharpen our pencil in terms of how we do implement the anti-poverty strategy. However, that being the case, I do refer to 2.3 in terms of the inclusive agenda, and in particular reference to the West and a group that I've been working with in making a difference. And I know work is in progress as to how we bring that particular, the disabled, the disadvantaged, into an inclusive agenda. And yourself, Chair, has helped that along. And again, I would extend the invitation at some time for you to meet with the Making a Difference group along with myself, so that we can see progress being made in that particular part of 2.3. And again, reference to 4.6, and that's energy use, and the reduction of fuel poverty. I hope that will also include our RSL, because there are still a huge number. I think it was at one time 46% of people throughout, both in private and public sector, social social housing, that were facing fuel poverty. And I hope that that would very much be a clear focus, and indeed it may be a further focus that we can put to that in terms of how we deal with that particular problem, dampness and uncomfort.
Liz?
The work certainly is ongoing across RSLs and with private sector landlords and houses, and you'll see in the body of the report on page 38, which is at 3245, under the heading Energy and Fuel, that it does describe that we have been working with a range of different types of properties and right across the region. And the projects that Councillor Scobie refers to in the action plan are very much about working with agencies and working with RSLs to cover all different types of housing.
Thank you, Chair. Just in reference to that on 3.245, yeah, I would certainly agree. I mean, the work through the HEAPS AB programme that is listed there, I think is certainly very worthwhile. And the Housing Subcommittee will continue to manage that programme, which I believe has a further 6 years to run with funding up through from government. And as you can see, Chair, the estimated saving on that particular year's worth of programme was £2.43 million. And that results in a real cash in the pocket saving for those that are suffering from fuel poverty. So through the Housing Subcommittee, we will encourage that programme and try and encourage the most funding we can to that, so that we can add to that going forward.
Okay, Jane.
It's going on the same subject, energy and fuel on page 48. The feedback there indicates that we are raising awareness, and we've dealt with that 100%, but we seem to have only done 7% in respect of working with agencies. I'm just curious to know why we've only got 7% way, we're 50% way through the time scale.
I don't know the detail of that, but I can certainly make sure that that information is provided to members.
Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I'll echo what everybody else has said, and especially yourself, the council should be congratulated for the anti-poverty strategy, and I would also fully support the 2 projects that are in here. There's just a couple of things I would like clarity on. 3.63 can just be confirmed that that's 140 teachers and support staff each year over the next 2 years. And on the second one, the cost of the school day, can you just clarify how we came to the total of 295,000?
Yes, it is 140 staff each of the 2 years, and the total amount is providing it for 2 years plus starting it in January, which is a part year.
Okay. Sorry, Andy.
Thanks, Leader. I'm just referring to the bullet point, the second in 3.2.3.3, about the development of a family information service. Are we sure we're just developing that just now? Because I seem to recollect working for 5 years in that service. Is that just a typo?
Sorry, you're on
3.2.3.4. The family information service has been in operation for years. So is it just the continued development of the family information service and forgotten something?
Yes, I think there's a particular focus to it that has recently been developed. So there is a particular piece of work ongoing now in our region.
Okay, can we go to the recommendations? Can we note 2.1 and agree 2.2? Sorry, Finlay.
Sorry, Chair, just a couple of questions. On page 36, delivering community hubs, and I know we base a lot of the strategy on the index of deprivation or whatever, but we realise there's real issues in pockets, particularly in rural communities, where it's very difficult to identify poverty. What are we doing to address that? Are we having online information that these folk can access? And also, is there any future plans to have a community hub in the stewardship? Because there seems to be a lack of community hubs right in the centre of the region. And there's one further question. I can't see it now. No, that's fine.
The specific initiative of the family centres, these are the areas that have been identified where both the property and the services are in a place just now to develop as an integrated resource. I think the other 2 paragraphs in that section highlight that there are also other projects which are making sure that we have integrated services across the region. Members of the Community and Customer Services Committee will know about the integration, particularly across the region, and also the service review and customer contact will see also fewer buildings but with a wider range of services in each of these. And that concept where it doesn't matter where you go in, that you will get the services or you'll get signposted and help to services is a fundamental one to the poverty strategy. And the channel shift strategy mentioned in 3234 is also picking up that we need to make sure people can go online. There's a telephone service or they can have face-to-face. It's whatever method suits them best. So we are making sure that whatever suits them, we're accommodating that.
Okay, Stephen.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, it's just a couple of points in the KPIs, if you like, in that table there. So it was just really to get a better understanding of where we're at in terms of the project deadlines, in terms of delivering in 4.09, the promotion of benefits advice services through communities. So obviously there's progress indicators there and there's a sort of amber status, if you like. Obviously it's the end of this month, you're looking to achieve those things. So just a wee bit of understanding on that. And similarly, in terms of the travel and transport, we've got a few due dates there that seem ever closer, and these are things that would have a direct benefit to people obviously trying to, enable their way out of a poverty situation. So it's really just to find out where those are at. Thank you.
The amber indicator shows sometimes where there's a milestone coming up and where there's a particular piece of work is due within the next 30 days. And it's a management tool to make sure that services are alert to the fact that something is required imminently. And so it's not to say that these things have not met a target, it's just that something is coming up very soon. And you'll appreciate in terms of the web information for financial inclusion, the deadline is by the end of this month. And we're only at 52% just now, so it's just flagging up that I think that is not going to be met by the end of this month, but we're expecting to have that imminently into the new year. In terms of the transport ones, there is a recognition in the body of the report that the target has not been met because there has not been a staffing resource there to complete that, but that the project in relation to the accessibility research is due to come to West Trans in January. So that particular one is the one that's not on target. But the amber ones are just highlighting that there's an action due in the next 30 days.
Okay, can we go to the recommendations? Can we note 2.1 and agree 2.2? And before we go off that, I'd just like to recommend to you, we read at the Holyrood magazine, and it's not just because I've got a photograph in there. There's a double spread recognising Dumfries and Galloway's contribution to anti-poverty. So. Okay, if we go on to item 7, which is the shape of the Council and progress report. This report presents the progress made in taking forward the shape of the Council programme since our last update at the end of September 2015. The programme remains on track and members will have had the opportunity to review and agree service review scopes and some of the early outcomes over recent months, and we look forward to the presentation of further service review options at service committees in 2016. Chief Executive and other directors are here to clarify any issues. Members? David?
It's just something I'd ask the Chief Executive to do. He mentioned the members' SharePoint site, Chief Exec, for keeping ourselves up to date. Could he circulate an email at the time it's put onto SharePoint just to draw it to our attention? Because I don't know about other councillors, but SharePoint site is certainly something I don't tend not to use, but that would be helpful.
Willing to do that. I'll speak to Lorna about how we might even sharpen it up a bit for you.
Ian?
Thanks, Leader. Just in regards to the impact assessment, considering the information we got earlier at item number 4, and there's a couple of reds in there, is there will that create any further stress that hasn't been identified up to now in regards to the reshaping of the Council?
Yes, we'll have to push further and deeper, but I think that we'll obviously have to wait for members' considerations of which services we have to stop and cut. That will have a direct influence on how we'd have to go about with structures. So absolutely, we will look to see within the approvals already given by members how much deeper we can go, but certainly we'd have to almost pause for a month to consider the members' consideration of services, because if services are going to go and get cut, that will obviously determine a future shape of what's left in those services. I draw members' attention back to the previous discussion on community transport. Bringing forward a strategy where we might not have money would be another one. So we need to pause, I think, a number of these until members' direction is clearly given and reflect that in the shape. But certainly, we'd be looking in the current service reviews to push harder and deeper and bring options for savings far greater than originally intended by members forward as part of the work over the next 3 to 4 weeks as a discussion with groups.
Thank you.
Okay, Craig.
Thank you, Leader. Just for clarity, if I could, on with regard to the appendix in the report, starting at page 62, various ways through the appendix there, the value of the either identified savings to date are estimated In some cases, it's much higher than the annual target of savings. So I presume that going through the various reviews, there has been further savings identified within that review, and they may be added to a second year's annual target, or will they all be deducted from the, you know, the 15-16 target that we have there?
No, we've obviously set a budget for this year, so what we've found is that members are very clear that the savings were the minimum expectation. In a number of areas, the teams working with staff and trade unions have been able to identify further savings to bring forward. And a couple of the savings that are being brought forward, remember, that we'll bring forward in January for discussion with groups, staff are identifying we can go even further. So therefore, we will look to do that, which is obviously what members hoped when they set it up. So no, we've set a budget for this year. These savings are just an earlier start in the challenges we face going forward.
Archie.
So thanks, Chair. Obviously, it's work in progress, and a lot of good progress has actually been made. The issue for me is to make sure that the position of the 4 directors are sorted at the end, and there's obviously the issue of DG First moving to the 3 or 4 other directorates. And I want to make sure that there is positive scrutiny in place to ensure that happens until the end of the project. So can you advise, obviously with the retirement of the director, who would be taking his place on DG First committee to take us through that scrutiny of the move?
Really depend on the issues, but the majority of the services will be transferring to Alistair Speedy. There will be services that, through the process, that will remain under the Communities Directorate, but I would expect one or both directors to attend to DG1 in relation to the agenda at that time. But the bulk of the strategic services will be transferring to Alistair Speedy. Happy to provide clarity to DG First Committee. Obviously, the committee structures is something that is also to be considered, but I'll make sure that the committee has absolute clarity in who's responsible in managerial terms for what from this point on.
Okay, can we go to the recommendation? Can we note 2.1, agree 2.2? Okay, if you go on to item 8, which is review of standing orders and schemes of delegation. The support asks members to consider recommendations from the review of schemes subcommittee in relation to amendments to standing orders and the schemes of administration and delegation to committees and officers. The new officer scheme represents a significant step forward in reconciling duties under job descriptions, the reality of powers being exercised, and day-to-day operational management with a formal, transparent scheme which reflects good governance standards. The subcommittee has also been looking at the development of schemes of administration and delegation to committees, highlighting that further work is required and reports will be brought back to full council at subsequent meetings. We've got Claire here to clarify any issues and answer any questions. Have you anything to add, Claire?
Thank you, Leader. Just a couple of matters to point out. Unfortunately, the title Head of Legal and Democratic Services hasn't carried through the scheme in the final print version, so there's reference to Senior Manager, Legal and Regulatory in the statutory officer appointment, so we'll correct that. The other issue is trading standards require an additional power under the Trade in Animals and Related Products Scotland Regs 2012. So that will be inserted at page 136 under section 4.18.19. So it's just to highlight these two issues. Happy to answer any questions on the report, Leader.
Jane?
It just, I'm curious, on page 84, 2.4.28, the decision to cooperate or combine with other local authorities in the provision of services other than by way of collaborative agreement. Just curious to know what that actually means. How on earth would you do it if you didn't collaborate?
A good point, Councillor Maitland.
Yeah, I think it's just to make clear that that you could have agreements that were formal service level agreements between authorities, or there could be more informal agreements. But we're happy to clarify that and make it a bit more particular.
Archie?
Yeah, I think on that particular point, yeah, there are some informal collaborative work that happens between councils, specifically on roads, for instance, and winter maintenance and that type of thing. So that clarifies that for me.
Ian?
Just on the subcommittee, and I think really good report in front of us, and I agree with what's there. Mine was the same and understand as what Archie's just come out with. It's about collaborative work. Even South Scotland Alliance, I would imagine, would even fall into that bracket, rather than being actually tied to a service level agreement.
Okay, can we go to the recommendations? Can we, sorry? Stephen, you're getting more like Columbo all the time.
Take that as a compliment, Leader.
You've not seen his raincoat.
It's just on, I think it's page 117, the sort of numbers overlap a wee bit, but it's actually just a wee question on the Packaging Essential Requirements Regulations 2015. Does this mean that over the Christmas period, when I'm receiving large boxed packaging for very small items, that I can call in Trade and Standards to actually take that back to the retailer so that they can be investigated, such as Amazon, or, for example?
I'm sure you can, Councillor Thompson.
Again.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to welcome the proposals, and also in particularly in 3.1.4, and I'd like to congratulate the Council to prove to be a listening and inclusive Council in providing a public forum at business meetings of area committees. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we now go to the recommendations? Can we agree 2.1 and 2.2? If we can go to the appointment to outside bodies, item 9. This report seeks approval from Council for appointments of substitutes following a request from the IJB and to the Pension Board. Members will recall that the full Council agreed that Council membership of the IJB would reflect the proportionality of the Council. As a result, I would suggest that there is no need to change our current custom and practice when it comes to substitution, and I would propose 5 substitutions for the 5 members. The Pension Board has also agreed that it would seek 3 substitutes from the Council as part of its board arrangements. The board has 3 appointments, and these reflect political proportionality, so we could do the same with that. 3 appointments. So I'll open up the meeting to members. Ted?
Thank you, Leader. The appointments to the Integrated Joint Board were made on the basis of proportionality of the Council, and I believe the suggestion that you've actually made for 5 substitutes is in fact the correct one.
Members. Gail and then Jean.
Sorry, did you say we were going to appoint 5 substitutes now instead of 2? 5, yeah. I mean, I never believed that this should be proportional or political, and I think it's actually disenfranchised a lot of the independents and other groups, and I would suggest that we try somehow to incorporate some of those on. It shouldn't be political, and if people are interested in sitting on it, they should be the substitutes, and they should give fair representation when they have to.
I think, sorry.
That would be my view. I think that the proportionality is all very well and good, but this should not be political.
Yeah, I think actually we did make a decision that at the full Council that it would be proportional. So, I mean, I understand your view and you're entitled to your view. Jane?
Can I ask you then how you're going to get around the gender issue?
I think there's 10 members on the board. It's a board that's, it's not substitutes, but the board itself, yeah. There's, you know, we didn't have, the board is actually made up, the actual board itself has been appointed, so.
I repeat, how do you get around the gender issue with respect to the council?
The board has been appointed, the board has been appointed by the full council. That decision was taken. You maybe didn't agree with it, but that's what was taken. It's Ian and Andy.
Thanks for that, Leader. Just as a point of clarity, I mean, I'm a member of the board and we spoke about it, and I thought we had to take direction from them in regards to the amount. So just to clarify on that, because they've stipulated 2, and what you're proposing goes away from that. So I just wonder, what's governance reassurance that what you're proposing is competent?
I'll ask governance, but the board asked if for that. The board is not part of the council. So, you know, it's my opinion that we can appoint as many or as few as we want. Governance.
I think the way forward would be that the IGB has asked for and discussed and asked the council to appoint 2 members. I think what we would then do is feed back to the board, if it were the decision today that we would wish to follow proportionality in 5 members, then we would ask them to consider that and have them come back to us on that. I think that would be the appropriate way forward.
Yeah, I mean, I've had, you know, I did talk with members of the board and there was no objection to that, but anyway, if you need to do it formally, then that's fine. Andy?
Just a question, Leader. Which members of the board did you speak to? Are you talking about the NHS board or are you talking about the Integrated Joint Board? Because you haven't talked to me.
I'll speak to you personally, Andy. I'll make sure I don't miss you out. I didn't say all the board. I did say the board.
Okay, so can I come back in on my question?
Oh, you've got a question. Sorry.
Absolutely, I've got a question. If Gail is prepared to make that a motion that we actually use the democratic process, gender balance, and actually go with the two being requested by the IGB, because I don't think we're in a position. The only invitation we've had from the IGB is to appoint 2 substitute members, not anymore. That's the invitation from the IGB, and that was unanimous by all the board members, including the 5 council and 5 local authority. That decision was unanimous. So so if Gail's happy to move that, then I'm happy to second it. The second question for the governance officer is, how do we define suitably experienced?
It's up to members to appoint or ask for members. It's not up to the Integrated Joint Board. We will decide what we want to propose forward. Ian?
Is that me or Ian Dick? Is that myself, Leader, or Councillor Dick?
Thanks, Chair. If that is a motion, I'll support it. And from a practical point of view, we've got the shadow board up until March, and we've got the first year of the board, which to me is going to be an extremely important one. And we can probably solve the experience and the gender balance in one go by supporting this motion.
Aye. Could you further clarify that, Ian, about gender balance? About what you really want
Well, I
to
just
do?
mean that the
But we're not being asked to gender balance here. We're just asking for substitute members.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's just simply that, that there were members on the old partnership board who had quite a bit of experience that may be available, potentially available, who have had that experience.
If you want to propose somebody else, you know, from the 5, if you want to sit in a place for your group, that's fine. You know, if you want to propose Jane or whatever, like, you can do that. Gail?
Thank you, Leader, for your indulgence. Actually, gender balance is not an issue to me. As you know, I'm the world's worst feminist, and I don't believe in positive discrimination, so I always think it should be the best person for the job. I do, however, think that, as I say, we should try and keep politics out of this board as much as is humanly possible. And I would propose that we have 2 members to act as substitutes for the 5 who have already been nominated, and that we decide those today.
Okay, so we've got 2 proposals.
I would just also add, I think more importantly, geographic representation would be better. Annandale, Nestdale and Nestdale represented at present.
So we've got 2 proposals on the table. We've got 1 for 5 substitutions. We've got 1 for 2. We have a motion. No, it did. Sorry, Ian, I thought you didn't want back in. Sorry.
No, thanks, Lear. I mean, I take on board what you're saying about proportionality, but I think what I'm, from my own point of view, what I'm going to take into respect as well is the geographic spread. There's a gender imbalance, you could say, in as far as the council's concerned, but it's eliminated through the NHS membership. But I still think we should be looking at the geographic spread, the gender balance for the members of the council themselves. And I would go a wee bit further than as far as what Councillor McGregor's went, and I would name the 2 people, and that would be the proposal, if that could be added, is Councillor Maitland and Councillor Tuckfield in regards to the 2 members. I'd be specific about that, if that would be accepted.
These are substitutes, but what we'll do, Ian, if, with that, if we can find out how many people we want first, then we can start nominations if you want after that. Okay, Tom?
No, I was going to make that point. Decide how many you're going to have, and then decide who they are.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go to the vote. Just to be clear, the motion is for, as proposed by the leader, was the 5 substitutes that reflected proportionality as per the original decision of council, and the amendment is for 2 members of the board.
Chair, say that if we avoid the proportionality in that, we could choose between 5 and 2.
So you want to make it clear that the 2 members of the board will not be on the basis of proportionality?
Yeah, or the 5 wouldn't be in proportion. Just
The 5 is a 1-for-1. That's on proportionality. Yeah.
So we're clear the motion is 5 on the basis of proportionality, and the 2 is not on the basis of proportionality. Okay, so go.
Can I just ask clarification on one point? I understand the proportionality. You mentioned earlier that if one group decides to nominate someone from another group, that would be in order.
Yeah, I mean, if the SNP wanted to nominate somebody to represent them on the board, then they can do that. Okay, right, can we go?
Okay, let's go to the vote. Okay, leader.
Motion.
Deputy leader.
Motion.
Councillor Bell.
Motion.
Councillor Blake.
Motion.
Councillor Brodie.
Amendment.
Councillor Crothers.
Motion.
Councillor Crothers.
Motion.
Okay. Councillor Finlay.
Motion.
Councillor Davidson.
Amendment.
Councillor Dick.
Amendment.
Councillor Diggle. Councillor Dryborough.
Motion.
Councillor Dykes.
Motion.
Councillor Ferguson.
Amendment.
Councillor Foster.
Motion.
Councillor Groom.
Motion.
Councillor Yen.
Motion.
Councillor Lever,
Motion.
Councillor McCaughtrey,
Motion.
Councillor McClung,
Amendment.
Councillor McComb,
Amendment.
Councillor McCutcheon,
Amendment.
Councillor McGregor,
Amendment.
Councillor McKee,
Motion.
Councillor Maitland,
Amendment.
Councillor Marshall,
Motion.
Councillor Martin, Councillor Ogilvie,
Motion.
Councillor Peacock,
Motion.
Councillor Prentice,
Amendment.
Councillor Scobie,
Motion.
Councillor Stitt, Councillor Syme,
Motion.
Councillor Thompson,
Amendment.
Councillor Tuckfield,
Motion.
Councillor Witts.
Amendment.
Thank you. And Councillor Wood.
Amendment.
Thank you. Sorry, the motion is carried by 24 to 13.
Thank you. Can I suggest that the groups then decide between themselves and get back who they want representing them? So, yeah.
Do we need to take it back to integrated joint board to clarify that now? First, before
If we
we
have,
actually nominate?
yeah, if they have the names, then we can ask to actually do that at the same time. Okay. On substitutes for the pension board, as I said, there's 3 groups represented on the board, and could I suggest, it's not too political again, that we ask a substitute for each member from that group. Yes, Craig?
Thank you, Leader. Chair, I would nominate Councillor Dryborough to sit on that.
Do you have any other nominations at the moment? Pension, Ian? On the pension group, well, the members, if you get in touch with other groups, and then ask them for nominations. Thank you. Sorry, Alistair.
Thanks. We're still in deliberation, Leader, so if you could be patient with us, I'll get back to you on the substitute for myself. But I'm in good health at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Is it the minutes, is it? Is it the minutes now, is it? Right, can we go to the minutes? We have the audit and risk management October.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Crime Subcommittee in November 2015, I'm happy to move.
Second.
November 2015, I'm happy to move.
Second.
The Education, 1st of November.
Happy to move. Seconded.
Employment Appeals, September.
Happy to move. Second.
October, Employment Appeals.
Happy to move. Happy to second.
Licensing Panel, September 2015.
Happy to move.
October 2015.
Happy to move.
November 2015.
Happy to move.
Second.
We've got the Local
Are they
Review
there?
Body, March 2015.
I so move.
Happy to second.
September 2015.
Happy to move.
Seconded.
October 2015.
Happy. Dead.
On November 2015.
Happy to move. Second.
We've got the Policy Resources, November 2015. I'm happy to move.
Second.
And we've got Scrutiny Performance, October 2015.
I'm happy to move if we can get a seconder.
Do we have a seconder? Is there anybody at the Scrutiny Performance in October? No, we'll need to leave that one.
Yen was there.
Yen? Yeah. Mover was Jill. Seconder's Yen. Okay. Yeah. Before we go on, I said at the start of the meeting about the, you know, having a paper and then a recess. But before we do that, I would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to Bill Barker, Director of DG First, who is about to retire from our council. Bill has committed his career to local government service over the past 37 years, commencing employment in 1978 with Greater Manchester City Council, County Council, and devoting his energies to Dumfries and Galloway for the last 30 years, a career of exceptional public service. Bill is a family man with many interests and talents. Out with the office hours, he devotes his time to his wife and daughter, and of course his beloved dogs, which he chases me down the road with. Not only has he had an exemplar career in public service, he has also had a military career in the Territorial Army, rising to a senior rank. He has promoted our council nationally throughout the UK in his many positions of responsibility within SCOTS, the Society of Chief Officers of Transportation in Scotland, and the respect he has gained from his peers has culminated in his present prestigious role as chairman of that professional society. Bill has been a key officer of our council for many years, and on behalf of members, I thank you, Bill, for all your efforts, commitment and service, not only to ourselves as members, but to the public and communities of our region. Bill, on behalf of the council, I congratulate you on such a successful career, and may I take this opportunity to wish you a long, healthy, happy and fulfilled retirement.
Thank you, Leader. May I wish you all success in the future through the somewhat troubling times that the latest settlement seems to have drenched you with. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Right, if we go into item 12, which is the Local Government Scotland Act 1973, and we're asked to agree to adopt a resolution to exclude the public from the meeting in terms of section 50A(4) and paragraph 6 and 12 of part 1 to the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Can we do so? Okay, can we? An addendum report should now be tabled, and if I can suggest that once you've got that, we'll take a 10-minute recess